Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Faith Talk, where we talk all things faith and the intersection of life. Dr. Robinson coming back to you again with a special episode for our listeners on this week. This particular guest that I have today is a brother that I've been trying to get in my studio for a minute. And if you all recognize his picture, you may be wondering, why is it so difficult to get him in your studio when y'all live in the same house? But he is a very busy young man. He working and going to school and preparing for graduation. And so I was finally able to nail him down, y'all. Finally able to get him. Just give me just a few minutes so he can get on his dad's show and share his perspective. If you all remember, a while back, we did a episode with his sister, Zoe Robinson, to hear her perspective about being a preacher's kid. And so I'm able to get him on here today. And what I want to talk about with him isn't necessarily his perspective as a preacher's kid, but just want to give him a chance to just kind of share what his experiences has been, coming up as a preacher's kid, but also getting ready to transition to adulthood. We were so proud the other day, his mom and I took him to vote with us. He went to vote to cast his vote for the very first time. He's turned 18 back in November. And so he registered before he turned 18. So he was already ready. This was the first opportunity he had to vote. And so this past Saturday, he went with us. So we're just extremely proud of him. And so I'm going to, at this time, present to you all my son, the son, as God said, when it came to Jesus, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And so I present to you and introduce to others my son, Mr. Eral Robinson. What's going on, Eral?
Nothing much. Living.
All right. So again, I wanted you to come on and just kind of talk about your experience as being a preacher's kid. Start with that, and then we'll move on to some other things that we'll talk about. I won't hold you long because I know you got a lot of things going on. But just kind of tell the listeners just kind of a little bit about who you are. Where you are in school and what your plans are and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so I'm Eral Robinson. I'm now 18 years old, and I've been a preacher's kid all my life. The experience. Talk about the experiences. It's been nothing but blessings. A lot of times, a lot of people know you because you are an image of who the preacher is, and so it's been blessings. I've been blessed to be able to see many things, do many things because I am a preacher's kid, and I'm very grateful. There's not a day where I was like, man, why am I a preacher's kid? But having a father who does do the good work, and then me being right behind and being able to receive the blessings because he do good work. Been amazing being a preacher's kid. So that's
All right.
that's
So you said it's been amazing being a preacher's kid. All
a
right.
lot of things I've got to experience because I was able to be a preacher's kid. And, a lot of doors open because just being preacher's kid. A lot of people
Yeah.
show you love. A lot of opportunities open. It's just I haven't had a negative outlook on being a PK yet, and that's just
Okay. Now, and I wanted to, I always wondered about y'all's perspective because as I shared in another time in the other episode with Zoe that, I didn't grow up as a preacher's kid. And so, I didn't have those pressures, those assumed pressures that people have, or those assumed pressures that people put on you because you're a preacher's kid. And so I didn't have that. I had cousins that were preacher's kids. And I remember just kind of thinking to myself, like, man, I'm glad my dad is not a preacher because I couldn't, kind of live up under this lens and these expectations that people have for you as a preacher's kid. And so now that I have children, you all are growing up under that lens and under that light. I often wonder, what that has been like for you. So have you ever felt like some type of pressure to have to live a certain way because your dad is a preacher, or have you always just kind of felt like, I'm just going to do what I do, or perhaps was it because of the training or, the things that your mom and I instilled in you? Did that play a role in that? So did you feel any pressure or anything like that? Or has it,
oh yeah, being a little kid, have everybody know who you are. You're a preacher's kid, so you have like the pressure. Yeah, I gotta do right, and I gotta act a certain way and do do certain things because, I'm a preacher's kid and I'm a reflection of who my parents are, in that
Hmm.
type of aspect. And, you just look at it like, yeah, everybody's eyes are on me because of who I am. So I always put that in consideration. But, it was easy to do when, you're being taught right, teachings that y'all gave me. It wasn't really hard. It was just, just knowing that I had to act, do, and then when it stopped becoming like an act and I just naturally it's just I act a certain type of way, it's because, the way I was taught, you know, just
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to hear that, it wasn't as much of a pressure as it was for you. And I know your mom and I, we never put those expectations on y'all. Well, I didn't put any of those tough expectations on y'all because we understood that, a lot this on this faith journey. One of the things I'm more concerned with is making sure that you are developing your faith as and in a genuine way and not just trying to keep up an image because you are a preacher's kids. I allowed you to do your thing, you know, and just make, our main concern was to make sure that we're teaching you all and instilling in y'all what you need to know. But by the same token, I know that y'all are children, y'all are young people, and yeah, I wanted you to feel free to live, but also wanted to make sure that we were instilling in you all those values and those things you needed so that you would live, in a way that reflects, your upbringing, that kind of thing. So we never put pressures on y'all. And y'all know that. We never, I'm never about the images. I'm not trying to, want you to be like this so people won't think nothing bad about me. Because at the end of the day, I realize that everybody's family, families are families, people are people, children are children, people do what they do. And so we always wanted to give y'all that freedom to make sure and just trusted that you all will make the right decisions. All right. And so, what is your earliest do you have any memories like, doing this process? Like say, you ever since you remember, all you know is your dad is a preacher and that kind of thing and church and all that kind of stuff. But what are some of your earliest memories of the times being in church and what was those experiences like, being in church at, we've served 4 different congregations, um, leading up to where we are now. So do you have any memories of any particular time, age or anything, that yet, that was very memorable to you during your journey as a preacher's kid?
I think that really the only memory, my earliest memory I can remember is going up them steps of Darty Chapel,
Hmm.
going up the stairs, and they had all the stuff up there. But it's just been a lot of things that happened throughout the journey. But I could
Hmm.
say that's my earliest memory. Memory is probably Darty Chapel,
Hmm.
Covington, just being in that church, for the time that we were in it, and just enjoying the stuff that happened around in the church. That's probably the earliest memory I have.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: how did your friends treat you when they found out, like at school, and whether that be elementary, middle school, high school? How did they treat you when they found out your dad is a pastor, preacher?
Sometimes you get hit with the little preacher son jokes, once in a
Hmm.
while. Other than that, I never hid that I was a PK. I've never been treated different either. Sometimes people make a little joke like, "Hey, ain't your dad a pastor?" Things like that. But
Hmm.
it's never been a problem or nothing. I got some people at school call me PK just because they
Hmm.
know I'm a preacher's kid. So it's like that's my
Yeah.
nickname. So it's like I just embrace it. There's nothing to be mad about. Feel like they picking on me. So it's school. I've always been open that I was a PK. Never felt like I had a reason to hide it, and
Okay.
nothing bad's ever happened.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if did you ever feel like ashamed in any way or feel like it was something you wanted to keep from the public, because of, they may figure, well, Errol, he's a PK, preacher's kid, so he can't do these things or be in these places and spaces or, those kinds of things. So you never felt ashamed or anything like that. Hmm. Okay. All right. So as it relates to, so you've been in church all your life and all that, you've been, with us the whole time. And now that you are 18 and getting ready to venture out into the next phase of life and the early phases of adulthood. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, throughout the years, how has being a preacher's kid helped to shape your faith and your understanding of God? Because, I can tell you now, as you get ready to venture outside of our house and you get ready to go off to college and all that stuff, this is the time that you really gonna need to have something to hold you and to hold on to. And so how has, being a preacher's kid over these years, what type of influence has that had on the shaping of your faith and your spiritual formation?
So, growing up in the church, you always had the idea and the vision that God's gonna always be in your life. But past few years, I've really just come to realize that I could put everything in God's hands, and it's really come from my senior season. I mean, my senior year of high school. A lot of assignments, a lot of things you got to get done. And, there's times where I'm stressed. I'm like, man, how I'm going to do this? And after a couple of days, I'm like, I'm going to just put it in God's hand. And so far it's worked out. So far I've been able to get past all the difficult times in my senior year. And that really showed, the power that God has, but just putting faith in something that you need, and it's gonna work out. So that's
Yeah.
that's that's really showed for my senior year. And just me, y'all give me freedom to go different places, and trusting me, and then having the faith that I'm a make it back and do the right thing has really showed throughout the year. And just me really just having that walk to know if I put trust and faith in what God can ultimately do, I'm gonna be good no matter what. So
Mhm.
that's how I've been.
Yeah. And like I said, as you're venturing into this next phase, this is when it really gets tough. And so having that foundation, and we know that we can do the things that we know to do, and that is to raise you all up in church and to bring you up as best we can, and to make sure that you all know what the word says, and you're involved in church and the church community. But it's when you get out on your own that you really gonna have to learn how to apply all that stuff. I always reflect back when I was your age. I was raised in church, so to speak. I was made to go to church, and quite naturally, you know, I didn't necessarily want to go to church, but living in the household that I was in, it wasn't optional. I had to go. But after I got out of high school and ventured out into the real world, I joined the military, and it was during that time that I was out of the house for the first time that I really began to understand all that stuff that I was being exposed to in the church, and really had to tap into God and really begin to discover uh, just how real God is. And that was during that experience. And so one of the things I can tell you that I appreciate about you and how you're different from me at your age is that you don't necessarily uh, you don't necessarily fight us when it comes to us telling y'all to go to church. You at an age now, we don't have to make you go to church. We don't have to make you go to Sunday school. You get up every Sunday, you get dressed, you get in your own car, you take yourself to church. And that is very commendable in my opinion. And I really appreciate you and proud of you for doing that, because that lets me know that you already making your own decisions about your faith formation and what you're going to do to nurture yourself. You get up every Sunday. Listeners, he get up every Sunday and he takes himself to Sunday school. He participates. He's a member. He's still a member at the Mount Olive AME Church here in Slidell, and he still gets up every Sunday, still goes to church. Sunday school, still participates in the Sunday school class. He is the treasurer for the Sunday school. So he's doing his thing. And so, the fact that he's doing that, he's actually ahead of me as it relates to where I was at his age, where I was made to go, and I did not. And I'm just going on record and saying it. I did not want to go. My grandmother just made me go. But little did I know I was going to become who I am today. So I thank her for that, and we appreciate you for doing that, Eral. So here we are now. You're 18, and you're getting ready to venture out. And so what are your plans after high school?
So right now the idea is to go into school, college, study political science, and either work a government job, and work in the community trying to help people understand laws and things of that nature. you know I'm trying to, get back in the way politically, through the government to get back to, everybody who, may need help, you know, politically, in the environment, community, all of that. So I think that political science will help me get to that point, through the government to help do those things that make the make it the places I'm at better.
Any particular school you've decided on yet?
Yep. University of Lafayette, Louisiana, ULL.
ULL. So
Yeah.
you'll be heading to University of Louisiana Lafayette. All right. You're gonna be 2.5 hours from me and your mom.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. Yeah. But we know you're gonna do good. Yeah. And so, you're venturing off into this next phase of adulthood, and you are getting ready to go to college. And we know, as I shared earlier, now is that season where you're really gonna be tested in the area of your character, your faith, your integrity, your witness, all that good stuff. Because now you're venturing into the next phase and the next level of life. And you mentioned that you're going to be studying political science. So, one question I want to ask you is, what made you decide to go into or to look to study in this particular area, political science?
So I know my freshman, sophomore year, I wanted to study and have my junior year, I wanted to study business. But then, I don't know, I always had an interest in politics a little bit. I always wanted to look in deeper and understand, laws and how things happen in politics. And then I think it was the 2020 election. I remember watching those debates with you in the living room and, looking at that stuff and like, wondering how all this stuff really comes down to it and, how things are really made and organized in the government, things like that. So I think, and then I would have thought about, I was like, yeah, I really want to learn that stuff. I just don't want to wonder anymore. I want to, learn how these different things go about and how to, how I can potentially one day be a person to do those different type of things. And yeah, that played a big part in me wanting to study political science.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I wondered about that because I did remember that you were interested in business finance at one point, and then I think when we did a tour last summer, you mentioned that you wanted to potentially go into political science and go into that world. All right, but whatever you go into is going to definitely be good. It's going to be blessed because of who you are and what you're planning to do. And so, also as it relates to leadership, I did want to make sure I didn't pass this up. So currently, as it relates to your leadership role, you are the Louisiana Annual Conference YPD director. For those who don't know what that means in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the YPD stands for the Young People's Division of the Women's Missionary Society, and you are currently the president of the Louisiana Annual Conference. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So what is your experience? What has your experience been as far as in a leadership capacity? Because we know leadership as you preparing to go into politics and potentially other roles outside of in college and outside of college and so forth and so on. Leadership is such an essential uh, characteristic that you're going to need. And so, since you've been the leader as it relates to the Louisiana Annual Conference YPD department, I'm calling you the YPD director. I mean the YPD president. Did I say that right? YPD president. I keep saying
President.
director. Director. You're the president of the Young People Division. All right. So what is that? What has it been like being a leader? What is your leadership? How has that experience been?
The first year, currently in my second year, uh, voted as the YPD Louisiana Conference president. And my first year, I was filling it out. I was running meetings and things like that. Filling out how to be a president and how to take leadership. Really helped me learn a lot. Helped me get out of my comfort zone because I wasn't really a big, public speaker, like public talker, like getting in front of crowds and, talking. But, that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone and made me, do more of that and become more comfortable with, talking in public and, showing leadership. And I'm just, you know, trying to learn more how to get out there, how to, push myself to become more of a leader and become somebody who can, lead and do the right things and make the right decisions, and somebody that, people can look up and like, he did the right things because, he's a good leader. Be able to
Mhm,
speak well, be able to, conduct myself well. That's the things that I
mhm.
want to take it to learn and take into, different leadership roles like the YPD and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes. I just want to get your perspective on that as well. Because you have been a leader. You said for 2 years, right? In that capacity, the YPD president. I keep saying director. YPD president. All right. And so this weekend, you got something special coming up. What you got coming up this weekend? All right. So you're gearing up for prom. And so how you feel about that? This is your senior prom, your last chance to have a prom in high school. So you excited about that?
I'm excited. Gotta
Looking forward
get
to it.
ready.
All right. So how do you feel about getting transitioning You graduating in less than a month. Less than a month, you'll be graduating high school. So how does that feel? Any thoughts, any emotions? What's going on with you on that?
Right now, I'm happy. Next week, my last week of school, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm out. I don't think it's hit me yet that I'm be really out of school, out of high school, and so it's right now. I'm excited, doing all the right things right now in school. So I'm gonna be out next week, and I'm excited to be out. Something that you think of when you were a little kid. I'll be out of school. I'm gonna do such and such. So that's what I'm happy about. But a month from now, I might be like, wow, I'm really out. I gotta
Yeah,
do grown up things now.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
I'm excited, but I'm also looking looking like how's this transition going to really affect me. Keeping God on my side to know that through switches, I still gotta stay steadfast.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, man, I'm telling you, it's so amazing. It just hit me when I said it that you're graduating in less than a month. It just hit me that you're graduating in less than a month. And you only have 1 week of school left, and then you're gonna be transitioning. And a few months from now, you'll be on the campus of University of Louisiana Lafayette, and this will be the first time in 18 years that you have not been you've not been with us. And so while I'm asking you how you feeling, I need to be checking my own self
Yeah,
because I don't
and
think it's
mom.
hitting me yet. And your mama, you already know, she gonna be just a mess. But I can say that, I'm really proud because this is a day that I've thought about since you were born, just kind of thinking like in stages. It's my firstborn child, and one day he's gonna be grown. That's all I kept saying. One day he's gonna be grown. And then I looked up one day and here you are. And so, I'm always, just thinking over life and just wondering, did I do as much as I could have done to prepare him? I know, as a preacher, pastor, I was always running and going and doing different things. But I always tried my best to make time to be there and do what I needed to do as a father. And so, I feel good to see that you've made it to this point and, see the young man that you have become and the young man that you are becoming. And so we're real proud of you. We're very proud of you. I think you know that. You're not brag on you all the time. You're responsible. You got your own job. You're doing good at school. You don't hang and do a bunch of craziness. You always just kind of do your thing. Keep a level head. You always, and so we're really proud of you. And so just to think about, I still remember the day you were born, you know, back in 2006, that Monday morning, I was so excited, as your mom was having you. And, it's just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And to look up now, here you are. You went from that little baby I, held for the first time. I held you before your mama held you, and now here you are transitioning into manhood. God, it's just amazing. And so I just give God glory and praise for keeping and preserving you over these years and you being the level-headed young man that you are. And we know you're going to do great things. We and your mama we just so proud of you. And we just thank God for the man you've become. And so is there anything else you want to share? I'm going to go and get ready to let you go because I know you got things to do. Anything you want to share, sign off, you want to share with the people before you leave?
God is good. God is
You
good.
good? All right. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you carving out some time for me, man, out of your busy schedule. And to our listeners, we thank you all for your attention today. And just know that we're proud of our son, Eral Robinson, and we ask that you continue to pray for him as he transitions from high school, get ready to go to college and life and all that good stuff. And so again, listeners, we appreciate you. And remember, Faith Talk is the place where we talk all things at the intersection of faith and real life. And so until next time, you be blessed, you be safe. Peace.